Hello and welcome to Divorce Discussions. I am Angie Weber, the director of the Divorce Support Collective, where our mission is to reimagine the process of divorce through collaboration and support from contemplation to thriving post-decree. We're excited to bring you another episode of Divorce Discussions, where we sit down with professionals who are here to help individuals navigate divorce with confidence, clarity, and care. Our goal is to inspire, educate, and empower you. To help with that, today I am joined by Joe Dillon. Joe is a pioneer in divorce mediation who has been helping couples navigate the end of their marriages with dignity and financial wisdom for over 17 years. As a co-founder of Equitable Mediation Services, Joe combines his MBA in finance with specialized training from Harvard, MIT, and Northwestern University to guide couples towards agreements that protect both their emotional well-being and their financial futures. As a child of divorce who witnessed firsthand the devastating impact of attorney-driven litigation on families, Joe brings personal experience that, combined with his professional expertise, enables him to help couples focus on creating agreements that work for everyone, especially the children. Joe believes divorce doesn't have to be destructive. With the right guidance and expertise, couples can part ways while protecting what matters most. So thank you for joining me for this discussion today, Joe.
Thanks for having me, Angie. Glad to be here.
Yes, one of our goals for this organization is to share other opportunities that people can utilize when they decide that they are going to, move forward with a divorce.
Right.
And maybe you have this perception as well, especially as a child of divorce, going through this and seeing it again firsthand. Why is there this misconception out there that the only way to do divorce is to get a lawyer and fight and battle it out for years?
Yeah, that's a great question because, a lot of people think the legal system, right? So the legal system, let me give you a little bit of a quick background. When we watch TV, right, I'm a huge fan of like Law and Order and CSI and all those crime shows, right? Everything's wrapped up in an hour. So we see that and we think, well, this judge is benevolent and they're going to just decide, and in 60 minutes, I'll be done, right? Expedite the process, no problem. But what people don't realize is in those situations, when you commit a crime, right? We can all agree that it's not a good idea to kill somebody, right? I think we're pretty much on the same page there. So when people are entering the court system in that regard, they're entering a court of law. And so a court of law says, kill somebody bad, can't do that, you're guilty. What they don't realize is the family court system is a court of equity. It is different. There are no clear cut, like, yes, if you do this, then this happens. It's all open to interpretation. And so they get confused, I think, because they think, well, if I go to court, get a lawyer, I go to court, and this is wrapped up in a day or two, and I move on. And what they don't realize is that it's a negotiation, it's back and forth, it's a constant, push and pull. And then when the lawyers are involved, right, it's like that game of telephone where you tell your lawyer, the lawyer tells the other lawyer tells the other client, who's, your soon to be ex. And there's so much miscommunication and so much time lost in that process, and money, of course, that the emotional stress builds, the bank accounts drain, and everybody is just like, feels just like they're just trapped in it, right? And you're in it. And it's like, well, I can't get out of it.
Yeah.
And I've been practicing mediation for 28 years. I've been in private practice for 17. And I can tell you from experience, there is a better way, mediation, and couples are empowered to make those decisions, right? And part of why I'm here today and so appreciative of the time is you want to educate people that there are alternatives, right? You don't just need to lawyer up, right? And so that's why I'm out here today, just kind of spreading that word that yes, your divorce doesn't have to be disaster. Yes, you can get an agreement you both think is fair. Yes, this can cost you a lot less money, time, and emotional heartache, right? So really that's kind of the emphasis, right? Is just to educate people that there is an alternative. And, to the lawyer's credit, they've done a really good job of making sure that people think lawyer first, right? And now we want to help them think mediator first, cooperate, work together first, right? Much like your organization is doing. So.
Yeah, I love that. And just when people do go through mediation, are there times when lawyers will be brought in to help with some of those aspects?
Yeah, it depends on the mediator, right? So we say if you feel the need to consult with an attorney, to have an attorney, on speed dial, we are totally supportive of that. But we do not require it. Some mediators do require their clients to retain attorneys. At Equitable Mediation, we do not. we believe you're adults, you can make your own decisions. Now, granted, that doesn't also mean that as a mediator, I'm not watching the proceedings. And if I see something funky going on, I might require someone to go speak to a lawyer, right? Because there are things lawyers can engage with the court system. For example, if someone's withholding information or hiding, money, those kinds of things that you're going to need a court order to start digging through. But thankfully, in mediation, that rarely happens, right? People who come to mediation tend to want to engage and want to disclose and want to be in a good faith negotiation and avoid the circus, of the attorney driven divorce. But so, yeah, I mean, I'd say probably about 95% of our clients choose not to involve an attorney. But once again, the choice is entirely up to them.
Okay, great. Now, if a couple is deciding we are going to move forward with a divorce, what are some things that they should be looking out for to say, yes, mediation is a great choice for us? And what are a few things that they're like, oh, unfortunately, mediation probably not the right road for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one thing is you both need to be on the same page, right? In our experience has shown that one person is typically the driver of divorce, right? Statistics have shown that the average person who files for divorce is thinking about it for 2 years and 1 month. There's a study out of the UK that has kind of tracked all this.
Yeah,
So now the other person is kind of 2 years behind the curve, right? When you think about it. And I'm sure it's not a surprise to them, but they probably had an inkling, but a lot of them could be, wow, I had no idea you were so unhappy, right? So what winds up happening is both parties, you don't necessarily need to be crazy about the idea, but you need to be on the same page and moving forward. So mediation requires active participation by both parties. It also requires full disclosure, right? So if I asked you for a bank statement or a tax return or a pay stub, you have to be willing to give it to me. The worst thing you can say to a mediator is, why do you need that? You sure you need that? It's like, well, then I just hoist that red flag right up the pole. And I'm like, okay, we have ourselves a problem here, right? That's just one of my, whoa. So in that example, we want to make sure that you're willing to engage in full disclosure. And the third thing is respectful communication, right? Divorces can get heated, even the best, most amicable divorces. I mean, it's a disagreement by default, right? A divorce is a disagreement. When friends disagree, we raise our voices, right? And that's okay as long as we're being respectful. We know it'll get emotional. But if we're starting to name call and slander and scream and yell and, then no, that's not going to work. Now, red flags in mediation, as I said, are disclosure, right? Mental incapacity. Unfortunately, we see a number of clients where substance abuse is an issue, right? And as a human, right, I care and I'm saddened by that, right? That there's something going on for this individual where they're using this, for whatever reason, right? For whether it's drink or drugs. And so in those cases, that person may not have the mental acuity to mediate and know what's going on. And we don't want to have them in a situation where they agree to something they're not aware of, right? That can also go for mental capacity, right? For individuals who may have other conditions besides substance abuse. So really, those are domestic violence is probably not a great mediation client as well, because there's usually a significant power imbalance, right? And you want to have an advocate. Those individuals may not even be able to communicate directly, right? But if you're willing and open and willing to engage and disclose, mediation can work for pretty much anybody who wants it to, right? As we say, if you want it to work or you don't want it to work, that's what will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of just that goes across all areas of life, I think, in a lot of ways. And
Exactly.
I love how you said, we decide this hard decision of we're going to move forward with our divorce. And as much as maybe at the beginning you're like, it's going to be butterflies and rainbows as much as it can be because we both want this, we're going to move
Of
forward.
course, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just going to be perfect. It's going to be done just like this, and we're all just going to move on. And as we've already kind of talked about, emotions can get really high. So even
Yeah.
mediation is a really great option for a couple to proceed with their divorce. There probably are, as you said, going to be times when emotions get high, voices get raised.
Sure.
What are some tips or ways that you help your clients to kind of come back to that collaborative style when those tensions get high?
Well, the first thing I do is I remind them that at some point in their past, whether it was at City Hall or in a banquet hall filled with 200 of their closest family and friends, they stood up in front of someone and said, this is the person that I most love, care, and respect, right? We've all, if you've been married, that's what you've done, right? Even in a civil ceremony, you have a witness and a best man or a best woman or whatever, right? And so we've all professed some kind of love and care and respect for this individual. And we want to circle back to that and say, look, remember a time. I'm not asking you to repair your marriage. I'm not asking you to not get divorced, right? That's not my role. That's a counselor, therapist. But let's recall that at some point the two of you were like on the same page or best friends or whatever it was. And that really does get people to kind of take a deep breath, right? The other piece you can talk about is, especially when children are involved, right? Is that you kind of tell people it's kind of a two-pronged approach. It's sort of like, number one, what would your kids think of you if they were sitting in the room right now, right? They'd probably think like, you two need to knock this off, right? And I know as a child of divorce, when my parents were screaming and yelling, I didn't matter if I locked myself in my room or not, I could still hear them, right? And then they would act like nothing happened. And you're like, are you kidding me? I might be 11, but I have ears, right? I'm not dumb about this, right? I know this isn't going well. And kids can sense that tension even when, not in mediation, when they're co-parenting after the divorce and things like that. So you all need to clear the decks. And that goes to that third point, which is you need to see each other. If you've got kids, guess what? This is the little trick I use. So feel free to use it. Figure out how long they've been married. And then I kind of take a look at how old their kids are. And I do some quick math and I say, hey, you guys have been married 10 years. You have a 3-year-old. Do you realize that you're going to be co-parents for your child for, until they get out of college for the next, do the math, 19 years? That's nearly twice as long as you've been married. Would you like that twice as long period to be miserable? Or
Yeah.
would you like it to be pleasant, right? If I were you, I'd vote pleasant, right? Why be miserable for 19 more years, right? And that kind
Yeah.
of reframes them to say, like, yeah, I never thought of that. I am going to see a lot more of you post-divorce, right? So that's kind of how we do it and kind of help bring them back and around.
Yeah, yeah. I love the comparison of like your children may be young at this point and you're still going to have to be in a different type of relationship with your
Right.
ex throughout not just till they're 18, but longer than that as well. Besides
Yeah.
the director of the Divorce Support Collective, I'm also a parent coach and I work with co-parents on their
Yep.
journey. And you're right, we can really decide how we want to approach, again, this new type of relationship with our ex.
Right.
And because, as you made a great point, kids are watching us. I say kids watch us all of the time, even
Oh
if
my
we
gosh.
don't want them to.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I absolutely true. I'll give you a great story, a
yeah.
quick story, and I know you'll laugh at this. So I'm over at a friend's house. He's making dinner. He's got three-year-old boy, and making dinner. He's in the kitchen, probably like cuts himself with a knife or something, and he says the F word. So his son runs around the house yelling this word over and over and over and over, right? And he's laughing, and the adults are going, "Stop that!" And the more they say "stop that," the more the kid escalates and is giggling and is running around the house screaming "F F F,"
Yeah.
because they just sponge everything. If you think they're not listening or watching or observing, oh, I have some sad news for you. That proves it right there. So,
Oh man, we could go off on a whole nother tangent. But one thing I kind of want to touch on that you said, one of the goals at the Divorce Support Collective, again, is to empower people. And
mhm,
that really means finding kind of your A team for your divorce. And that doesn't mean you just find a mediator or you just find a lawyer, because there are so many different aspects and type of support out there. As you mentioned,
right,
I'm not here to see if divorce is the right choice for you. That's more for a therapist or a counselor
right.
type of situation. What are some other professionals or support that you recommend people get while they're going through divorce so that they can come out with the best possible situation as far as like emotionally and mentally?
Yeah, so three people come to mind. Number one is a counselor. And so people look at me like, I'm sorry, but we're getting a divorce. Why do we need a marriage counselor? I said, you don't need a marriage counselor per se because you're not trying to repair your marriage. But as you alluded to, you're trying to evolve your relationship to become co-parents. And so I'm a big fan of, and I tell clients, I'm like, even while you're divorcing in mediation with me, still go to therapy, whether it's together, individually, right? Because you need to manage these emotions, right? And if you don't want to do that, so my partner, Cheryl, who's also my wife, is a divorce coach. So she's on our team here and she provides emotional support, right? My background is finance and negotiation. So I'm very tactical, financial, paperwork driven, process driven. Cheryl, on the other hand, and I even fully acknowledge this, is that it's not money that drives divorce, it's emotions that drive divorce, right? And if we don't resolve those emotions, you're going to be in this circle over and over and over. And it's time to, let that go, repair, rebuild. So
Yeah.
number one would be therapist. Number two would be financial advisor. A lot of us think, oh, only millionaires have financial advisors. If you have $5,000 in the bank, I would like you to talk to somebody because eventually you are now going to become an independent financial entity and you're going to be responsible for building your own financial future. And all those little moves you make now are going to add up to big dollars when you're 65, 75 years old. And I saw that with my mom. She gave up her share of my dad's pension in exchange for reducing the equity in their house that she was going to owe him. So she bought out the house. And, she worked in retail and a couple of companies that went bankrupt and her, between Social Security and her pension was like, $1,200 a month or something. And it's like she didn't plan for her financial future. She got divorced at 45, right? And that really harmed her down the road. So those two, and then an accountant. I know it's funny because I have an MBA in finance and I still hire an accountant to do my taxes and I still have a financial advisor because it is complicated. You can make a lot of mistakes. And these folks can also, again, provide the guidance to tell you, like, listen, let's keep the financial house in order. You have to change your deductions in your paycheck, or you're getting alimony and it's taxable at the state level. You need to put away a couple of dollars every month for that. So April 15th, you're not surprised, right? So having those people on your team, both the emotional and the financial side of the house, those, if I had to pick three, those would be my top three.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Because again, I think there's this misconception of we just need the lawyer, we just need the mediator. Yeah,
Right.
we have so many different aspects to ourselves as human beings, and there's a lot of different aspects to
Yeah.
a divorce. And there's a ton of support out there, like divorce coaches, like certified, financial advisors who focus on
Yep.
divorce. And so it's really kind of gathering your A team so that you can feel
Right.
best supported and you don't feel like you're struggling in some of these areas. Now, I love that you focus a lot on the financial piece too. So share with
Yeah.
our viewers, what is the number one financial mistake you see people going through divorce make?
Oh, that's an easy one. Oh boy, here's my famous phrase. This is one of those learn it, live it, love it phrases. Do the discovery before the deciding. I'm going to repeat it. Do the discovery before the deciding. People say they come into mediation. I can tell you the absolute worst thing you can say to a mediator is, we've got it all figured out. I know immediately this is going to be one of the most challenging, difficult cases I've ever had. That right out of the gate,
Yeah.
because somebody went on the internet and they talked to the cashier at the supermarket, and their old friend's college roommate's brother-in-law got divorced and told them this is what they're going to get in alimony or how the property division works. It's not like I went to school for 30 years and, I've been practicing this or, sure, no problem. The cashier at the supermarket knows far
Way
more than
better
I
than
do.
Harvard. Way better.
Way better, right? And so they come in and they've got all these decisions, and I start asking questions because part of my job is to poke holes, right? And I ask this, and then one person's like, I didn't know that. And oh, really? Oh, and then they're like, well, I want to change my mind. And what happens? The other person jumps right on them. But you said we agreed to this. And that's when it spins out of control. So that's what I say. The financial mistake people make is they don't collect the proper information to make the decisions. Budgets, pay stubs, tax returns, balance sheets, all the numbers add up. And only when you have all that information right out on the table, what if I gave you a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle, and the box was half empty?
Yeah.
You'd be like, well, why am I going to do this? I don't have all the pieces. And I'd be like, well, just put it together and, tell me what the picture looks like. And you'd
Yeah.
be like, but I can't.
Yeah.
Where's the rest of the pieces?
Yeah.
So that's it. Don't make a move. Don't make a decision. Famous, this is what I say to people. I'm like, that's an option. right? That's how you get away from saying no, right? It's like, well, yeah, that's an option. Absolutely. I'm willing to consider that as an option. But in light of new information, it might not be the option I go with or the best one to choose, right? So that would be it,
Yeah.
far and away.
All right.
So,
Well, all the viewers listening, if you're talking to Joe about mediation, do not go in saying you have it all figured out.
no, totally not.
That's again why there are experts out there and professionals in this arena that can help people with that, so that they're making the best decisions moving forward. All right, Joe. My last question for you, as we're talking about finances, is that yes, you help people decide what is the plan moving forward while we're getting divorced as far as
Yep.
finances. And I know you also look at, but what does this mean after your divorce? So
Right.
how do you help couples have a realistic post-divorce budget that actually works for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have these proprietary budget worksheets we've developed with like about 100 different categories. And, it's so easy these days, right, with credit cards to just have things auto bill. And so what I ask people to do is really dig through their credit cards, dig through their bank statements. I mean, Cheryl and I just had this conversation the other day. It's like I'm spending like $80 on Netflix, HBO, Hulu, Apple TV, and I watch baseball all summer. That's all I do. So I'm like, it's just because it's hitting the credit card.
Hmm.
So we have them really drill down line by line by line, and then I review it and I say, really? You're going to spend $75 a month on groceries? Really? And so we have a lot of resources. So, for example, the USDA has a website that tracks the average cost of groceries for a family of two, a family of four, a family with children. So I say, okay, go out there. They say you're going to spend $878 a month, not 75, right? And we push back because what people don't realize is that we're trying to set you up for success. Weird way to say it, I know, but we want to challenge you so that you get it right out of the gate, you get a good foundation. And then we also show them ways to track, for example, inflation, right? The consumer price index, right? These are all things I love as a finance and economics person, but people, oh God, Joe, they glaze over, right? But this is important. So we challenge them to build a solid foundational budget. We show them how inflation is going to increase those costs. We usually ask them, like, what kind of raises have you gotten in your job? No raises over the last 5 years? Well, guess what? This gap might get bigger, right? So you need to find areas to trim where you can. You can't do those 5 vacations a year and, have that $2,000 a month car payment or boat payment or whatever it is you've got. So that's really it. We tend to we become the financial disciplinarian. And like I said, you don't have to like me because if you're slightly annoyed with me, I've done my job because it means I've challenged you, I've pushed back on you, haven't given you everything you wanted, right? I've balanced the playing field. So that's really how we do it. We show them how the dollars really stretch, whether they're making ends meet out of the gate, and then help them kind of track that as they move forward. I say, look, once a year, go back and look at that budget. You don't have to redo it, but just pick 10 categories and track them and go, wow, my mortgage used to be 2,000 a month. Now it's 2,700. It's like, ooh, I got a plan for that. So that's really that process and how we kind of get them future focused.
I love that. That was so great. Joe, thank
Yeah.
you so much for all of this wisdom. I hope that you viewers have learned a ton from Joe. And of course, you're going to be able to get connected with him through the notes in the caption to check out his website, check out their social media. Now, Joe, is there a specific area that you work in, or can you work in multiple different states and areas?
Yeah. So we work in 6 different states. So we practice in Washington, California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And it's funny, I'm originally from New Jersey, then I lived in Chicago, and now I live in the San Diego area. So you can kind of see how our practice has moved over the years, but also those are very mediation friendly states. Not all states are as friendly to mediation, but they are supportive of the mediation process. And so we enjoy practicing in those states. We're familiar with how things work in those states, been practicing there a long time. So yeah, but certainly there's lots of places you can go. If you're not in a state we practice in, there are a lot of, web directories, Google searches, and if you go on our website, there's actually an article on how to hire a good mediator, right? Of course, if you live in one of our states, we hope you'll work with us. But we have a guide and also a guide on how to hire a lawyer because we say, look, sometimes mediation is inappropriate. I will tell clients, I don't think mediation is going to work for you. And I want you to get a good attorney, one that's going to be supportive and one that's going to be cooperative and not just go, let me see how many hours I can bill this person for and put my kid through college. Because trust me, those attorneys are out there too, unfortunately. So that's it. Get educated, get out there. And if you live in one of those 6 states, we're happy to talk to you. You can schedule a free call with us, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Joe. Again,
Thank
listeners and
you.
viewers, please make sure go get connected with Joe. Check out some of those articles that he has so that you are best equipped and empowered. Of course, make sure that you stay tuned and watch for more divorce discussions coming your way. And if there's any additional support that we can help you with, go to the divorcesupportcollective.com and check out our members and other resource options there as well. Thanks so much.